Meeting starting.
We're passing around, follow-up 24.
So Article 20, they're still going around. Now Alex is on the floor. Excuse me. Okay, so Article 23, under 23.1.2, you have proposed to move the word serious. And we want to maintain that word because there's a number of hazards, from tripping hazards to getting hit with a ball, like those kinds of things. And so we felt like maintaining the word serious helps to clarify what sorts of situations we're talking about. Then you also had the added subsection, and we have some responsibilities under the law, under ORS, to make notifications related to those circumstances. So we felt like that's already covered by law. On the next page, under that additional subsection, what we'd like to do with that is, because we heard your concerns about making sure that that was something that was consistently implemented by principals. That was a question that Marcy asked. What we want to do is we want to have that as part of our reminders for principals in the beginning of the school year. We didn't want to add it in terms of language, but we want to make sure that we're sharing that with principals so they all understand and know they have that flexibility, which I think would be valuable, just to clarify, especially as we're doing on new principals and things like that. So don't want to add the language, but definitely want to make sure that that's what we see as our current practice is easily understood by everybody.
Sorry, I just want to clarify, you're talking about the subsection that we
When a
added,
staff member,
the 20, before 23.
right above 23.1.5. Yeah.
Sorry, I
The one
thought
about
you had
the
moved on,
communication?
and so that was.
No, that was the one, the other one that I went over, that is.
Oh, not that.
The orange one is, there's a law around reporting on that.
Okay,
We're working from
Yeah,
yours
okay.
and then,
but then, so I'm sorry, so what was the one that we're talking to principals about?
So if you, just take yours
Yes,
and go to the next side
the yellow.
okay,
and right at the top. No, that's okay. It's hard because I'm like, the language isn't in this one because it's not part of the proposal.
Right.
So I'm kind of going back and
Okay.
forth.
okay, thank you.
So the next one, that yellow is the one we were planning to, make sure principals understood they had the, authority and the flexibility to do. Okay. Under 23.1.6, we are going to leave current contract language. It doesn't show up in your proposal, but we wanted to strike part of that language, but we're okay leaving it as is, which is, I think, your intention because you didn't highlight it. So 23.1.6 would just stay as current contract language. The next is 23.2. We're okay striking that uncommon in the title because you've moved it down into the language below, into the orange. So we're okay with that. 23.2.2, we feel like we need to maintain that language of recurring and repeated, because that was when we went through this and developed this language last time. We were trying to describe those situations that are recurring and repeated. And so we wanted to keep that language because without it, we feel like it loses the intention of what we were trying to accomplish with the new language. And then finally, if you go to the back, one of the things that we had questions about was So you added language here, but it's pretty similar to what we have that we just talked about in 23.2.2. So if you could clarify for us, and not, even if you need to come back with your proposal, that's okay. But I'm not sure that that adds anything because of the fact that it's in 23.2.2. And so that's a question we have for your team. And so that is the, everything that we have in that safety article. And then Jennifer's gonna cover the other article, Article 24.
Ryan, I hate to ask, but I got lost. Which one are you, which part are you saying is a duplicate of 23.2.2?
So we think, it's a question. So 23.2.2,
Mm-hmm.
where, we talked about the recurring and repeated.
Yep.
Then if you turn over to the back, this highlighted
Yellow.
section in yellow, that's the question. That feels like it's, similar.
Okay.
And then for Article 24, we don't have any changes to our proposal. That's-
It was the decision from legal that that's not as different? Is that what they were saying?
I mean, the first part of your sentence is law anyway, right? We have to bargain if it's going to change. The way it's actually written, I think, can open it up for a lot of different interpretations. So since we have to follow law, we didn't feel like there was a need to add additional wording there.
Oh, you're talking about the ORS.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, all right, thank you, that's perfect.
Did it?
They did, they said you can also put the proposal.
That why it was different than.
Okay, so in response to your questions regarding 23.2.2 on the second bullet point, incident eligibility shall be established based on the employee receiving repeat non-consensual physical contact. We wanted to clarify that the repeated incident, which was indicated in the above sections, was related to the individual employee receiving the contact, not necessarily the same student making the contact. And that was a confusion based on the last school year, where employees were not sure whether an incident would count because it was a different student that they were being hit by or kicked by or bit by, but they were still receiving the recurring incident. So our reasoning for adding this was to clarify that and establish that it's for by the employee receiving the contact, not the one who's perpetrating the behavior.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, based on that, what are your opinions on that language?
We'd have to have that discussion.
Yeah, we're gonna have to talk about it. I think the other piece, though, I just want to note, because we talked about it last time, is also your word use of non-consensual. Because I think we shared that that can be a kindergartner that comes up to hug you, that sort of thing. And so I think that term is problematic for us. I believe your intent is different when you use physical contact, but those types of things can fall into that.
Can I have a clarification? Do you think employees, or have employees been reporting contact, like hugging kindergartners?
No,
Like,
but again, it's not based on when they report or not, because we tell people to report whatever it is, but the way you put the language in the contract matters. So it's really important we're using the correct terms of what we mean. So, because if people are doing the reporting only because of this, that's a different problem. We really want individuals to report if there is a behavior incident, which is why we put this language in. So we can do some tracking, helping look at are there patterns, like that sort of thing, to both determine what we need to do with students and if there's additional training we need to provide. So.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Currently, when you're reviewing that data, are you looking at the number of incidents an employee is receiving? are you looking at whether it seems to be the same student doing it to them in order to establish a pattern?
We're looking at all of it. I think one of the things that maybe this has brought some awareness based on, I think, what your intent is, based on number of incidents per employee, because that seems to be coming up more and more.
That's what, yeah.
Is originally our intent, and it goes back to, remember, a couple of years ago when we were talking about an individual working with one particular student and on a daily basis being hit pretty physically, like an aggressive hit, not just a tap, right? That's where we came to this language. And so that's where we were working from that premise from. But as we're looking at it, I am seeing individuals who've had more than one by more than one child, but I think there's other things around that as well, right? It depends on the position. Student behavior, individuals, that's part of their job, is they're interacting with students, have a little bit more activity. So we have to kind of look at the totality of everything that we have in information, so.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay. You want ours?
Yeah.
Okay, you have two pieces. One for each of them, and then Marcy. You.
So this is one packet, you see right now.
Yeah, there's two, yeah. Okay.
Or there's two?
No.
More in favor?
No such word. I think we'll go through the top one first, the capital proposal. So, Article 4, I'll go back to the previous proposal, or it's in the, it says bundle here, but the package, they changed it. I'm not quite sure that's the correct word, but we'll work on that. Each time it becomes another word, I think. That's fine. Under 6.3.2, keep having that word rest show back up, and I assume it's just that we haven't taken it out yet, but you want it to be breaks, is that correct?
Yeah.
Consistent?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's why that's still on there. For this, 6.5, we agreed to your district language, it's new, and that was because of the addition of the word paid, under paid holiday. And then also 6.6. 6.8. This was just to change the language after what was, to be consistent language with what we did, agreed to in Article 23. This notification shall happen as soon as possible after the change. Okay.
Yeah, you're right there.
This is 7.1. There, looks like the degree of to return on the other side. And this was here, we put in the word rounding up so it would match what we agreed to in 10.5. And salary placement during the assignment rounding up. Okay, 8.2. This is just to have sort of a discussion, and it's something that still always comes up about removal of material. And letters of expectation, when people are called in for those meetings, they're told this is not disciplinary. Yet when you get further down in that letter, it says can lead to, and the two don't seem to go together. I mean, if this is truly not, it's just reminding you of what your expectations are in the situation, that material should be able to be removed from your file because it is not disciplinary. And I think that that's just the problem we're having with this. with
Is it
that.
the letter of expectations that's more of the issue,
Well,
or?
I think that's part of it, is because in it, it does sound disciplinary if you read on through it. You're bringing people in, you're telling them, remember, these are your expectations, then you might add in some additional ones because of what situation happened. So it's not disciplinary technically, because you're not going to do anything with that employee that day. But yet when you go on and read further into the letter, it says this could lead to. So it is, it's like pre-disciplinary. So I mean, how can you reconcile the two? Or
Well, I understand, I
Does
think
that
I
make
understand what
sense?
you're saying. I would say that anytime, so even, let's just say, use the beginning of a onboarding thing. We're reviewing expectations, and at that point, we could say, if you choose not to follow these, it could lead to disciplinary action. It's the same type of thing. It's sort of that warning to say, if you choose not to, this is where it could go. And that's a standard practice, I would say, in multiple locations when it comes to that, that you need to give people warnings of what would happen if you don't follow through.
and then those get to stay in their file later after 3 or 5 years. They've met their expectations all along that time. They can't be purged. Why do those letters have to still be in there?
Well, when I've never had anyone ask for a letter of expectations to come out, typically that's in the like a letter of reprimand is where I've seen the request, and that's typically what I assume you all were referring to here.
I think it was just a combination, trying to explain why in one it said it's not disciplinary. And then one, all of a sudden you get to this letter of reprimand where, too bad, so sad, if you do this again, you're definitely, or more possibly will definitely lead to something different. It's just sort of a, oh, absolutely.
So I think the problem where part we're confused on is the last sentence of 8.2. An exception to this practice will be made when a reprimand contains a written warning of discharge. The letter of expectation generally contains language saying that if these expectations are not met, it could lead to termination or disciplinary action. And that was being interpreted as falling under that category of this can't be removed from the file because it contains this. Is that not what your
I would
understanding
say a
is?
letter of expectations is not disciplinary.
Okay,
But
so
it
they
provides a
can,
warning. Yes, and I've been here 20 plus years, and I've never had anyone ask for a letter of expectations to come out of their file. I also recognize, and I think a lot of people think their personnel file just sits out there openly viewable, and that's not true. It's rare when someone's going back and looking at someone's personnel files. Typically, HR is looking at the information, so.
What happens with that? Let's say an employee goes for a different job in the district. Is that,
The personnel file is never pulled for
Made
as part of the
available?
application.
I mean, if it's been, 5, 6, 7 years and.
No, if that thing has happened over that period of time, then the person's made a change. So,
But that file's not just,
no, absolutely not.
or it's not put somewhere where there may be something in their
Nope.
file for.
So the word reprimand in here is very key, that only the letters of reprimand that state that.
The letter of reprimand has that statement in it, correct.
You don't use that statement in the other letters?
The other letters say it can lead to, because it's not a disciplinary, a letter of expectations, again, is truly just outlining what's expected. It's a written reminder that you have to follow these things. And a warning to say, if you choose to not follow it, it could lead to disciplinary action.
I think we're clear on the letter of expectations, just like it says, whether it contains that or not, it is expectation, it's not this one. I think we're clear on that point. I guess kind of honing in on something you said that we've had discussion about is, I come into this job and maybe there's a bunch of disruption in my life and I have trouble getting here on time, or I'm here, or I'm absent a lot, or whatever it might be. You give me that official written warning. 3 years go by, I clean up my act. 3 years go by, based on what we're asking for here, there's no more problems. So the intent of the discipline is to correct the behavior. The behavior's been corrected for 3 years. It's, if I was late again, what would happen?
We're starting over because 3 years have passed. I can't go back on 3 years ago to say, oh, this is a pattern, because that's not true. I
So,
think you know that, Obie.
well, I'm asking a question. I'm just asking a question. I don't like to presume for people. It gets me in trouble. So what would you say if it's not 3 years? What would you say that they'd be under that thinking? What would it be 1 year? Would it be 2? I mean, I'm saying, like, what would be the thinking on doing that? How would you see that as
If a
referencing
pattern's
that discipline?
continuing,
If it continues, I assume you mean like it's happening throughout the school year essentially, right? And you see that behavior and you warn them that you're gonna do something more. Have I essentially got that right?
a pattern isn't ongoing, but there's also, I wouldn't say I'm not gonna put a time limit. Is it 1 month? Is it 3 months? But if I'm seeing something happens this time of year every fall for an individual, and then it happens the next fall, and then the next fall, to me, there may be a pattern. So we're probably having a conversation. Again, there's so much to every situation to say that is going to be this or that. I would need to understand the whole picture before I made any determination.
Well, that kind of goes to what my point is, I think, is that using the example you just gave, that could happen over three years.
If it happened today and 3 years later, the same thing happens, to me, that's not a pattern. It's probably a conversation I'm gonna have to say, hey, you made a difference, but now what's going on again, right? But 3 years, I would expect the association to fight that, and that probably would not happen. So I'm not sure, again, the letter of expectations, we've never had anyone.
I'm actually talking about a written warning at this point, like official discipline.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're clear on the expectation piece. You were very, very clear on that.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to make sure I understand, because obviously one of the rules of the road, right? And obviously, I mean, you're trying to pass laws to force the internet to forget you after so many years, right? Because you changed your behavior, whatever. So it's not like it's completely out there and crazy bill or something. We're trying to figure out what rules we're playing by here, because it seems to me you made a mistake and you've corrected it and 3 years have passed, that you have, the process has worked, you've been rehabilitated, and you should be allowed to have that removed and forgotten about, because you did what you're supposed to do, and you've showed the time. There is no pattern, right? You showed that time. Why would we remove that document?
so there's actually legal reference to this particular statement here,
Mhm.
which is why we're not interested in moving it out. We've had our attorney consult on this. So that piece, again, if someone had a reprimand 3 years ago and now they have something happen that's similar, I'm having a conversation. But I can't go back, there hasn't been that pattern.
But
There
we can
may
always
be
bargain
some-
better than the law, right? I mean, we're not handcuffed to law. We can always bargain better, right?
I'm not interested in
Okay,
doing this. You use it
fair
if you
enough,
want and
fair
don't want, so.
Well, I think that's true for every side, right? All right, thank you.
All right. 8.3, below that is about the job descriptions. We get so much on this, people want the job descriptions. And they know, even now that they're not exactly, because they've changed over the years. A lot of them are kind of generalized, but some of them aren't enough perhaps, or whatever. So this was just more something in there that would be available publicly at all times, and review a third of the jobs each year over the next 3 years to try to get them caught up. It's just sort of something that we can have so that we make sure that we hold ourselves to it and get those done.
Okay.
Whatever you can do. All right, Article 10, compensation related matters. 10.1, we can go back to either our previous proposal or look at what the wage request is in the package. 10.1.2, we took off that sentence at the end, we have other sentence. A, new subsection. I don't know if you saw it, this is for people who are outside of the top 5 languages, and truly, I mean, it probably doesn't happen a lot, but if they're asked, and I still believe that they should be paid at the translating rate for their time.
So I guess what I need to better understand is, because if they are on our translator list for whatever language, regardless if it's in our top 3 or top 10, if they're asked out of our translation department, they are going to be paid at the translator rate. So I am wondering if there's a different understanding of what you guys are asking for and what's
I
actually.
should some of it is sometimes they may not be, people know when they find out that so-and-so speaks or is from, and then they're asked to, and are pulled in at that time to do it. And maybe they didn't even know about being able to get onto that list or whatever, which is common. I think that's what we're talking about, is for those people to be able to be paid.
An example could be, and this was a few years ago, but we had a staff member who spoke Portuguese. Family came in to enroll back when we still did it in person, and trying to do our things wasn't working, and a staff member, somebody's all like, oh, Jennifer speaks Portuguese, brought her down, and they spent like 45 minutes working with the family. We called it in, it wasn't one of the top 5 languages where they've already received a adjusted income for it. That they are helping out using a skill they have that wasn't what they were hired for, being paid for. So that's what we're talking about, is we're recognizing that other people have had their things adjusted, knowing we could use them, but sometimes it's harder and almost more needed to have the translators who aren't our common languages than it is the ones with the common languages.
Right, and I get that. I think we need to make sure we vetted it though, versus just someone who says they can do it, right? There's been no vetting process to determine the level.
I hear that.
And so then there's other potential liability when we're paying them in that particular arena. So I hear what you're saying, and maybe it's more of a communication to staff to say, if you speak a language and want to be available for this, then we can connect them. for that
But they're not
purpose.
doing that, I mean, you're pulling them in, it's because they know, and at that time, a lot of times our stuff is at that moment, we're trying to get people in as quickly as possible, or, and by law, we have to get them in as quickly as possible. But I think that's when we're running into it, and usually it's pretty common knowledge who can actually speak a language good enough to be.
I think I hear you saying that you're almost saying that you would communicate out that you do not want people being pulled in to translate unless they're on the list. Is that what you were saying?
No, not at all, but I'm saying if you're just pulling someone in because they say they speak it, again, I mean, we haven't vetted anything in regards to that. And so I recognize that individuals who sometimes on a side, and I'm not saying this is happening in our system, but I mean, where we've even heard, for example, kids trying to translate or interpret for their parents, right? There's gonna be a filter there. Going through our process, there's been some rules and expectations outlined to say, again, you're not doing it through any filter, you're doing it based on the actual language. So I'm wondering if we need to get to this in a different way, but I'm not sure it's through this, because actually this could be other individuals too, not just your members. So I don't know if this is a bigger system thing we need to look at.
I've seen teachers get pulled as well.
Yeah.
And it could be a bigger system things. I think Mary, correct me if I'm wrong, but our overarching wish is that people get paid for the skills that they're doing using on behalf of the district.
Some more thought to that. Anything else here? Back to those. Page. Those. So next is 10.7, longevity. So our previous proposal, or it's in the package that we'll talk about next. And then we talked about the 10.10, and we had agreed upon it, accepting an MOU offer for that, for,
That's the club,
Yes,
high school.
yes. And this was the added sections. We made a change to the bus rider part. The first week of school is excluded. That's our proposal back. Article 11, insurance, that's also in the package, or you can look at the fallback on the previous proposal. The same with the holiday. That's in there as well. That will be done next. Article 14, we come back with 4, we're coming back with 5, 14.3 for the days. The 5 closure emergency leave days. Usually they're like this for the rest. 13.7. This is one. We'll change that this time.
Can you help me understand why we keep asking for more leave when that's one of our issues?
Well, it was one of our members' concerns in the surveys, do I have that right, Allison? That they had brought this forward. It was high up on the list, so that's why they're still saying.
And your members are aware Paid Leave Oregon is available as well? I mean, there's 2 parts to this. It's we only have so many days with students, right? We continue to see a lot of absences to a point of people exceeding well beyond. And then those who are here sort of have the impact as well.
Yes.
Okay.
And then down below, 14.7.5, excess still of 5 consecutive work days. And that's page, oh, sick leave cash out.
So we heard you that just now, before, that, you know, you're having trouble with people accessing their sick leave and they may not be sick. And we're probably hearing from the people that are sick. But we backed down to 5 days so they can access this benefit sooner. We felt that would maybe accomplish what we're trying to do and have that be accessed as early as in the first year if they don't need their sick leave. We've also dropped the second piece, as you did point out that you are doing a 20-year, severance package. So, for the contract. So we heard that and we did drop that piece.
Article 21. It's in the bundle as well. In the package. You want to go here?
Happy?
Package?
I can, yeah. All right, so we turn to the package. I see we put some things together in here, full articles and some partials to help identify some priorities and kind of where we're at with some things. If you see at the top there, we've significantly moved on our ask for wages over the next 3 years. And you can see the amounts there. And then under association rights, we have a few other minor things in the regular, but we wanted to pull out the welcome back rally and training. This is just very important to us. And it's not out of line. I mean, we talked about common practice with, the writing warning letters, that this is common practice in most districts that.
I'm not aware of any district that does.
How many do you want me to send you? Okay.
And I would say, as we've talked before, we don't necessarily agree with other contracts.
Well, sure. So we were talking about common practice, right? So this is common in many places. So I will send it to you. That's not a problem.
Have there been other ways to look at encouraging your members to attend to get the information?
Other way, I mean, we do all kinds of different things depending on what the issue is, but having everybody together at a time when they're not trying to do 100 things because school's starting has been very, very helpful at the beginning of the year. It helps us to get the message out on things like, we were wondering if your members know if they have PLO. Well, we have those discussions in places that have this at the beginning of the year to say, hey, this is a new benefit you have, right? So, and like we did an MOU over, right, that we incorporated here, we explained what happened with that process, for instance, it really is a good exchange of information for our folks that typically helps the district too, because then they're utilizing the proper things, the proper ways.
I understand that there's some value to this. Right now, I don't see the members using current paid time right now to get the things done before the school year regularly. I mean, Mary knows I constantly am griping about getting trainings done. We give them a paid day for that. They don't get it done. So now we're gonna pay them to come to an association meeting and they can't get the other things done they're actually required for their job.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like accountability on the district's part to hold them accountable to show up to do their
I'm
job.
just saying, we're already paying them to do things that we need them to do. We're not looking at paying extra for these other things.
No, I understand your objections. You just asked me why, so
Yeah.
I'm explaining.
I just want you to be aware of, that's one of the reasons.
Sure.
We have some
And-
strong feelings about it.
And Ryan wants to see the language. If it's all reasonable, we'll answer your questions and send you the information. It's not a problem at all. Okay.
Alright. Insurance, I believe is the next piece. You can read that part down there, and then contribution per month, I believe, matches what you have offered.
Well, I got lost, Mary. You said there was an MOU.
11.3, district contributions towards medical, dental, and vision insurance premiums for a full-time employee will be a maximum
Oh, okay, sorry.
in the by table, and then if you turn the page, it's our offer, and it's in blue because it matches what you offered. Okay, and then for the full-time insurance, we've gone back to the original contract language. It's a big change on our part. Article 12, the holidays. This section. And this is where you wanted the language from, put in the language point six that we agreed to in 6.5. That's what that is down there, when it says supervisor contact, so it's just already.
It's the same language.
Language just moved over here that you requested. And the holidays, we know that like one of them we've already get either Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve. We're still asking to get both. One of them we already get, so it's just adding the additional one holiday. Yeah, was there any way for us to get information on what you see as a financial aspect of that, and how many people it would affect?
I was supposed to get that to you, Mary, and I didn't. Let me-
Oh, that's fine.
I'll do it.
We can work on it when we come back. Okay. And then, Article 21, we change revert to the original contract language. That's another change. Yeah, you want?
So this is the first time I've ever received a package, in my career, and so I'm curious how this works. So can you describe it for me?
Sure. Although we did do them early on with PLO and something else a number of years ago, we did raising, but essentially the idea of a package is like you asked, what are your priorities, right? You've done it a few times. We're trying to show you some of those priorities. We're still talking about these other
So this
things.
is your, so again, so this is your proposal, highlighting priorities in the package.
Right.
Got
And then, I mean, if you want to be done with this today, you would sign this. That's the kind of the other side of.
This
showing
or this
right?
or both?
Well, you'd be done with these if you sign this today, right?
Got it,
But if you say no, then it was poof, but you can see what we're thinking, right?
okay,
So that's the idea.
concept,
Yeah.
okay.
Because then you can change this and this can come back.
As a bundle or package, and then we can say no or yes, and same things apply.
Okay,
Or standalones for that matter.
We'll respond with all of ours in one package.
There you go. Hey, Andy up there in
Or a
North
bundle.
San Diego, Andy up in North San Diego before we went to Albany, he did that every time.
You can come back with the next word for budget.
Yeah, there you go. Make sure it's legally sufficient.
We're ready to conference.
okay.
Could we potentially, are you able to give us information of how many classified staff last year didn't have their safe schools done before the first day of school?
I can't go back now and do it, but I can tell you every fall, there is a large number, like well over 100.
Of classified, just classified?
I think they've changed the law that the most recent session to, don't quote me exactly, but I think they have to do it here at school now. They can't do it at home.
No, we
So
don't
we
pay them,
provide a paid day for it, yeah.
and many districts don't. So
They
that's
don't,
a
you're right.
practice that we
Yeah.
do.
to get it done, and it still doesn't get done.
Like the majority don't pay for that day.
Interesting.
So about 20% don't. About 20%.
No, that's it probably is a quarter, but again, it's an ongoing thing.
Okay, I just wondered how many you
Yeah.
were saying.
Yeah.
Just gonna do.
It's a frustration because we pay the day, we give the
Absolutely.
time.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Do you want to move or do you want to?
No, I'm not operating that way.
Never too late.
So what was unusual for us to work through is this or this in your proposal. And so we just worked from one piece of information that we're gonna work through, and there's not an or.
Okay.
So, starting with, and again, I haven't put it in blue. Blue is what we've agreed to, and we have a lot of things, but the duration until all said and done will stay yellow until we actually have a full agreement.
Okay.
I'm gonna try and bounce back and forth between all the different pieces to try and make sure I make the connections. The first piece is Article 4, you have indicated that the Welcome Back Rally and Training Day is important to you. We are willing to offer the space, but to pay individuals to do that when we have some other priorities first is not something we're interested in putting in the contract, but we certainly can support the space, encourage maybe some other creative ideas, raffle, whatever it is for you all to encourage your members. You do have access to individuals throughout. So that's where we're not looking at adding language. The next piece is Article 6. The rest breaks, that truly was just kind of a cleanup piece. We're fine there. Article 6.8. We're fine with changing it rather than timely manner to as soon as possible. So that's now blue. Article 7. The one thing I want to point out, you had put it in blue, is that first sentence, and actually in our particular piece, we put, because we're not moving, but copying language here based on recall, it's due to reduction in force. So you'll see in ours it's red. It's not a huge change, but just wanted to recognize that it's different from your copy. The rounding up, we're accepting. Article 8, 8.2. I know we spent quite a bit of time around that. I appreciate the conversation. We're not looking at striking that last sentence. We do actually think that's an important piece, and as a reference, there is some legal components to that. The next section under 8, you put as a new section, job descriptions. We are willing and have a plan to have job descriptions available to staff through Google folder starting for next school year. We've got some things we've got to get in place to have that ready. So that will be there. We're not looking at putting language, and a big part of that is, one, it's the HR's work, and two, if for some reason we did not put one up there, then you all could grieve it. And so that's not our interest in doing, but we understand the importance, and we will work on doing that. The second part of your piece about reviewing 1/3 each year, you will see when we get to JLMC, I've referenced some language there, so we'll come back to that particular piece. That moves us to Article 10. So COLA is same of what we had last time. But we will show you as far as just identifying some pieces that are important. And again, we mentioned we have a budget. So if we're changing something in one place, we have to take away, or looking at how do we cover that. We understand longevity is important. So we have incorporated 10.7. The 1,500 starting July 2025. On that same page though, I want to just bring you to the top, because you all have not responded, and I don't know if it was intentional. But based on the education incentive, we had proposed language, actually, a couple proposals ago, about doing it at a different time for the newly hired. So I just kind of wanted to point that piece out. Okay, going back to then your translator piece. So, again, appreciate the conversation and better understanding your intent. As I mentioned, we do actually have a system, where individuals who want vetted, if we're using them for true translation or interpretation. We actually do testing of individuals. They go onto a list. That information is shared with buildings. So I understand the immediate need, but there is a way to actually access someone when that is needed. So we aren't looking at putting the language in here, but we already have that in place, and we'll review that again with administrators.
What is the process for indicating that you might like to get on that list? I guess I'm unfamiliar with it.
Sure. So we actually have an application for translators out there. But what I'm hearing, I think Marcy May had said, is maybe not everyone knows. So we can certainly, when I have to in September, send out the email of where to find jobs. I can certainly put that in there if needed. So it is a matter of reminding or letting people know.
I would agree there's probably a mental disconnect between the top 5 languages, testing to get the pay thing, signing up to be a translator, say, hey, I'm available, and then the people in this thing where their services are being asked to help on the fly in the moment and not realizing they should get on that because it would translate over.
And there's one other ripple to that too, and that is that principals can call a number to get those languages. And we don't want to put people on the spot either if they're just wanting to help but don't feel overly fluent, and it's kind of, so do I help, do I don't help? So to have that, and again, reminding our team about that as a resources as well, I think is going to be important, because again, as we've talked through the systems piece, that's a piece that we probably need to share out again.
Okay, so now we are at 10 point, well, they're new sections. We put it as 10.17, it's the bus riders. So we're very close, but we are actually, rather than the 3 which we originally had, asking for 2, because again, just needing some time to get adjustments to schedules. So that's why I just left the whole sentence yellow.
So, sorry, I would, so is the plan now to only have extra people on the bus for 2 weeks, or to still have the 3 weeks?
So we're counter proposing to your 1 week.
Okay,
Ideally, we would like 3. We're willing to go to 2.
okay. No, I guess I just, because the current, or what has happened in the past is that there are extra people on the bus for the full 3 weeks. And I guess I'm wondering if this counter proposal is to reduce that time to 2 weeks.
If very well, maybe we say we can only do it for 2 weeks.
Okay. I just wanted to be,
Yeah.
And again, this was language we brought because we knew that it was hard to get folks to be able to do that and change lifestyles and those things. So we're still trying to encourage folks to do those.
okay.
You all were in agreement with the insurance amount, so I put those in blue. Oh, yeah, that's still insurance. Okay. So holidays. Again, we heard this piece was important. Again, we're trying to recognize where we can try and support some of the requests, and so granting then that additional, so it's not an Eve 4. So both Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. And I did not want to spend time putting this in the little table, so it's just a run-on list. We will do that when we get to actually formatting, but just know that's why it's that way. Okay, I think we are on Article 14.
Clarification.
Yes.
In Article 12, I don't see a response to the suggestion for language regarding working on a holiday. Is there a reason?
That language is in Article 6 that we agreed to. If we put it here, I felt like we needed to add some sentences to actually why it's there. So in the end, when it comes down to a formatting, if we decide to do that, we already agreed to the language. You were just putting it in two places, and I just felt like it felt out of place. And that's not probably where someone would look because it was a callback. So. 14.3, we are keeping at our 4. We increased that last time.
And this time in that proposal.
14.7, again, we've talked a number of times about the sick leave. We're not actually looking at increasing that particular piece. Again, Paid Leave Oregon is out there for individuals who need additional. The 14.7.5, our piece is really just to align policy. Okay, moving on to, let me respond to your sick leave cash out. So, I think where we've landed is we've had the discussion about the concern of people being out. I understand your intent is to try and entice people to save. Our worry in this particular proposal is that actually this does not set someone up where sick leave really should be, the idea is to kind of see it as an insurance bank. So if the thought is the first year person comes in and they have 6 days and now they want to cash out 5, then going into next year, something unfortunate happens, they don't have the leave, that puts us right back in a position. So really trying to get people to understand what sick leave is for. So at this point, we're not interested in that particular language. So I think we just have different ideas on kind of the purpose behind it.
So would increasing the days make it more amenable to what you're talking about?
Not necessarily. I understand where you're going with it, but I think there's a lot of pieces we've seen when we actually have in the past done a thing with 403Bs, individuals don't set up their accounts, so it becomes more work on our end. In this particular case, it doesn't necessarily meet the need we were hoping to try and solve. So not right now. Let's see, Article 17 for JLMC, this is where I added language to try and address the job description piece. So hopefully kind of captured what we, at least idea-wise, are in agreement about reviewing them. Then Article 21. Regarding grievances, we are looking at trying to respond to one of your proposals, going from 15 to 20 days. Or actually, that's Article 22, I apologize.
But, sorry, where were we at?
Article 22, it's our last page.
Okay, yeah, sorry, it's like 21. I was like,
Yeah. 21 is we're wanting just to keep current contract language.
Okay.
Any questions?
So safety, all right. 23.1.2, the serious word. I just guess, I mean, that word is subjective, and who for you all is going to decide what serious and what isn't? I mean, how will that work? For me, tripping over a cord would be serious. You know, I have stuff with my bones, I'd be broken. So I would have to know that there were gonna be cords or whatever in the room. Whereas someone else knowing that they're gonna come in every day and get hit or bit or whatever, that would be serious. How will that work, keeping that word in there? How does it help you all?
This actually, by removing it, we felt like, actually opened it to the person who, well, I mean, in a simple example, like slice their finger on a piece of paper, right? I mean, everyone has a different definition, but that's where we were, the idea behind this series when we had the initial conversation was, again, I go back to individuals who were being hit every single day with aggressive force, I guess you could say. And that's why we were working on this language originally. So kind of going back to what our original intent was. Someone who trips on a curb, maybe they do seriously hurt themselves. And again, we have workers' comp and a whole process for that. But sometimes people just may trip over their own shoe. I mean, and so just trying to get to what was the intent behind us putting this in, and it came down to that conversation.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right. And then,
So because it's in blue, are you in agreement with that clarification?
I believe so. I
Okay.
just was trying to
Yeah, no, I just
help
wanted,
you all in a way to understand where we're coming from, because it leaves it open to grievance, if, you know what I mean, on our end, so, okay. We moved the language regarding the adjudication notification, because you told us that, what the process is and what you do, when we spoke out here, so we're fine with
okay.
taking that. And then you talked to us about what was going to go on with the discussion with administrators, with that piece. So I believe didn't take a sentence out on that, or was that further down?
At the end of 23.1.4, we removed that language addition.
Yeah, we moved that. Okay, remove that last part. Right. Regarding the leave without loss of pay. We had your sections, we agreed about taking uncommon out, so that was good. And then on the other side,
So that, the under 23.2.1, that uncommon, that would be blue then. I mean, it's not in this,
It's
but
currently
it's,
blue.
oh,
Yeah.
that's right, never mind.
it's X's out,
Yeah.
so it's, okay.
You're right, that's right.
23.2.2, we're fine with leaving recurring and repeated in, as long as you relook at the sentence that we would like at the end. We're just trying to make it clear to employees that it's not just, I mean, if you're coming in every day and something's happening, it might not be the same student. Because of where you work, you put in with different students that there happens. That incident eligibility shall be established based on employee receiving repeated objectionable physical contact. We took out that word, non-consensual.
The tough thing when we get into these conversations, right, is words matter specifically in a contract. I think this also, people could question, but what I want to understand is I believe the intent I heard was the person who walks in every day is somehow being injured or
And they are.
hit. But I've also seen, and this is where I guess I'd want to better understand, so when we talk about this, we can see if there's potentially a different way to get at the concern, is it's not every day. It might happen, from what I've seen, is an individual's working with someone, a student, maybe in the morning, an incident occurs, in the afternoon, an incident occurs with a different student, that's on the thing. 3-4 days later, another report is made. So as you all are thinking and trying to meet what the concern is you've heard, is where does the repeatable, or in this case used objectionable, where does that come in for you? And the thing is it's not clear cut, right? I mean, when we see it across the board, it's not like we can use one sort of marker. Again, want to hear about it.
I think one of the first bases is that it's important to us, as we've been reminded, the contract is about our employees. We don't get to decide things for kids. So we don't want it based on the child. because this contract isn't about them, this is about the employee. I'm gonna speak for myself. I watch things, here in our district, other districts worldwide, there's almost this normalizing of that you're going to be hurt at work. And work shouldn't hurt. Times change, things change. I've got over 20 years here. There's a big change to where a staff member used to get hurt and it was a once in a while thing. And now it's a fairly common thing. And we all know that the reports going in are not representing all the ones that are happening. So, and in fact, as we know, we talked in some of the earlier sessions that there was almost some encouragement to not do it, where we had people being asked, but were you really hurt? You really need that break? It wasn't that bad. That's not for anybody to decide with that employee. And we don't want to be normalizing getting hurt. So when we talk about a pattern, it happens once, it's not a pattern. The second time someone's getting hurt at work, there's now a pattern. It doesn't have to be every day. But why is this person being in a place that they're getting hurt? What needs to be changed? What systems need to be done? I think if you look, I know I sent you that example you'd asked for. Yeah, it wasn't every day. But when you look at the sheer number of incidents that happen for that employee in like a 4-month period, that's a pattern of being in a workplace where the structures in place are not keeping the person safe. And we really should have more responses and things done. And I think that's kind of where we're going with it. Work should hurt. We do not want to normalize that our employees will be getting hurt in the workplace. Colleen or Mary, anything?
No, I think it's gonna be the same. Jennifer and I have looked at patterns, and maybe we'll have, something we have to look at more closely and see how we can figure out an alignment and how, figure out what it is. But I think it's something that we can work with y'all on.
Okay.
We'd really like to.
I think, just to point out, because it's been a lot of back and forth with this article, I think we're literally down to this last sentence, so hopefully we're close with that. And we'll be done with that article.
And then on 24, right, we're fine.
Yeah, we can pull it out. I mean, you're right, it is the law, and the next section below even references the law again there. I mean, it's, as long as we all understand that, I think we're fine pulling that out.
So I know we're till 4:30. I don't know if you feel you have enough time to work through or you.
I think we do.
Okay.
I think we could do that.
Okay.
So you'll let us know.
Yeah. I might have to present near the end and let you come back next time.